What if the scariest part of the next recession isn't the recession? It's what happens before. It's the part where stocks are still near highs. The headlines are still optimistic. Your neighbor is still bragging about the easiest money ever. And then, quietly, the smartest money in the room stops playing offense and starts building a bunker because Michael Burry just showed his hand. Not in an interview, not on CNBC, not with a speech, in an SEC filing. And the filing is almost empty. 8 lines. That's it. 8 positions that tell you exactly what kind of market he thinks we're walking into. And here's the twist that makes this video different. Burry also moved to deregister his fund, meaning the window where you can even see what he's doing might be closing. So today we're going inside Burry's 2026 recession portfolio. Not as a copy trade list, as a blueprint. Because if you learn the pattern behind these positions, you don't need to worship the man, you need to understand the storm. Stay to the end, because one of these holdings looks totally out of place, and it's the one that reveals what kind of recession Burry is really preparing for. Quick disclaimer. As always, this is educational, not financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy anything. We're analyzing public disclosures, how they work, and what they imply. Now, let's get into it. Setup: what this portfolio actually is. First, you need the rule of the game. What you're about to see is based on Burry's latest disclosed 13F holdings snapshot for the quarter that ended September 30th, 2025. A 13F is not a live feed. It's not a real-time dashboard. It's a delayed snapshot of certain U.S. holdings, so don't treat this like Burry said buy. Treat it like a crime scene, because the evidence is loud. Here's what the evidence says. Burry is not diversified right now. He's concentrated. This isn't a portfolio. It's a thesis, and the thesis looks like a barbell. On one side, selective, battered, real-world cash flow exposure. On the other side, a direct hit against the most crowded story trade in the market. And if you want to understand a recession portfolio, that's the core idea. You don't build one by guessing the exact date. You build one by asking, what breaks if the economy slows? What survives? What gets repriced the hardest? And where will fear move first? Now, we're going to break down Burry's recession blueprint into 7 pieces. The 2 shadow bets that explain the whole setup, the 5 bullish positions that survive the flip, and the 1 weird security that tells you how he thinks about risk. Let's start with the shadow bets, because without them, the rest of the portfolio doesn't make sense. Part 1. The shadow bets. What Burry thinks is about to break. These are the positions most people see and immediately scream, he's predicting a crash. But Burry doesn't predict headlines. He studies fragility. And fragility usually lives inside the most beloved story in the market. Right now, that story is AI. Shadow bet number 1, Palantir. The biggest disclosed position in the filing is a put option position on Palantir. Translation: a bet designed to profit if Palantir falls. Now pause. This is where people get confused, because in filings like this, you'll see a massive value number. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what he paid. It's often a notional value tied to the shares controlled by the options. So don't get hypnotized by the headline number. Instead, understand the message. Burry wanted major downside exposure to Palantir, which is interesting, because Palantir is one of the most symbolic AI names in the market. Government contracts, defense data, and a narrative that has turned into religion for some investors. And when an investment becomes religion, risk gets ignored. That's when Burry shows up. Shadow bet number 2, Nvidia. And he doubled down on the AI theme on the other side too, with put options on Nvidia. Same idea. Downside exposure to one of the most important companies in the AI supply chain. Now, here's the key. This doesn't mean Burry thinks AI is fake. It means he thinks AI is priced like perfection, and perfection is the first thing that dies in a recession, because the market has a brutal habit. In good times, it prices dreams. In stressed times, it demands proof. So why would he target these 2? Because if the market cracks, the most crowded trade becomes the loudest unwind. And the unwind doesn't happen politely. It happens like this: a small miss, a guidance cut, a regulatory shock, an accounting question, a funding squeeze. Then, everyone tries to leave at once. And that leads us to the most important 2026 clue in the entire story. Burry has been publicly criticizing the AI trade not just on valuation, but on accounting. He's pointed to the idea that some big tech companies are stretching depreciation assumptions for AI-related equipment, which can make earnings look stronger on paper. And why does that matter for 2026? Because if you're heading into a slowing economy, and the most expensive part of the market is also the part where investors start questioning the quality of the earnings, that's exactly the kind of crack that turns optimism into panic. So the shadow bets tell you the first half of the recession blueprint. Burry is positioning for a world where the AI trade loses its spell. Now the second half. If that happens, what does he want to own? That's where the 5 stocks left come in. Part 2. The 5 bullish positions. What survives in a recession? Now, here's where people expect Burry to be all in on bunkers, canned food stocks, utilities, gold miners, something obvious. But Burry doesn't buy obvious. He buys mispricing. So these 5 names are not just defensive. They're targeted. They're weird. And they tell a story about what kind of recession he expects. Not the end of the world. A repricing. A slowdown. A stress test. Let's go one by one. Stock number 5, SLM, the Consumer Stress Pressure Gauge. This is the one most people don't understand. SLM, Sally Mae, student loans. In a recession portfolio, why would you own a student loan lender? Because it's not a growth bet. It's a stress gauge. Student loans are one of those invisible weights in the economy. People will cut streaming. They'll cut vacations. They'll cut restaurant spending. But debt payments don't care about your mood. So if the consumer starts cracking, student loan performance becomes one of the places you'll see the pressure. Now here's the contrarian twist. Markets often punish these kinds of businesses early, hard, sometimes too hard. So if Burry believes, yes, stress is coming, but the market is already pricing in a disaster that won't fully happen, then a beaten-down credit-related name becomes a mispricing opportunity. But it's not a safe bet. If unemployment rises, if delinquencies spike, if policy shifts hit the space, credit names can get punched in the face. That's why this holding is so revealing. Burry is not pretending the consumer is fine. He's positioning around consumer stress with an eye for mispricing, and that tells you what kind of recession he expects. One where the consumer gets squeezed, but not instantly wiped out. Now we go from debt to a premium brand. Stock number 4, Lululemon, quality after the crowd leaves. This one shocks people too. Lululemon, a premium athleisure brand. Why would that survive a recession? Because recessions don't kill spending equally. They shift spending, and they punish valuation. In a slowdown, the market tends to do this. It takes high-quality companies and reprices them like they're broken. Then later, it realizes, no, they weren't broken. They were just expensive. That's where contrarians make money. Now, Lululemon isn't immune. If consumer spending weakens, discretionary names can drop fast, but the key word is brand. A strong brand is not just leggings. It's pricing power, it's habit, it's identity. And in downturns, habit spending lasts longer than impulse spending. So Lululemon in this portfolio reads like, I'm not betting on a consumer boom. I'm betting that the market has overpunished a high-quality business, and when the dust settles, quality survives. Now we shift from discretionary to healthcare, because healthcare is where recession portfolios usually get serious. Stock number 3, Molina Healthcare. The recession rotation inside healthcare. This is the most recession-shaped holding on the long side. Molina Healthcare. Here's the simple version. In a recession, people don't stop needing healthcare. What changes is how they pay for it. When layoffs happen, employer coverage can shrink. Government programs become more important. Managed care becomes more central. So Molina becomes a bet on the idea that even in stress, healthcare cash flows keep moving. Now healthcare is political. It can get attacked, margins can get squeezed, reimbursement can change. But if Burry is building a recession portfolio, healthcare is one of the few places you can hide without pretending nothing is happening. And this is the pattern you should notice. Burry is not buying high hype. He's buying systems. Systems don't disappear just because the S&P is scared. Now, the next stock is where Burry stops being subtle. Because he didn't buy Halliburton shares, he bought leverage. Stock number 2, Halliburton, the volatility bet. In the filing, Halliburton shows up as call options. That matters. Because call options are not a slow, safe investment. They're time-bound leverage. So why would a recession portfolio include a leveraged energy bet? Because recessions and crises do something that retail investors always forget. They can be deflationary and inflationary in different waves. A recession can kill demand, but a geopolitical shock can spike prices. A supply chain fracture can hit energy. A policy move can reroute production. In other words, energy is a chaos hedge. Halliburton sits inside the activity cycle. If drilling activity rises, services benefit. If energy gets repriced due to volatility, services can snap. So Halliburton calls in this portfolio tell you Burry isn't betting on a calm recession. He's betting on a recessionary environment with volatility spikes, the kind where energy can reprice fast. And now we get to the biggest bullish exposure in the portfolio, the position that sits at the top of the survive and rotate thesis. Stock number 1, Pfizer, the dead money reversal. Pfizer shows up as call options too, and this is classic Burry. He loves trades where expectations are low, the crowd is bored, and the valuation starts to matter again. Pfizer, post-pandemic, became a dead money stock to a lot of investors. The hype left, the narrative died, the market moved on. And when a stock becomes dead money, institutions stop defending it. It gets ignored. It gets dumped. That's when contrarians start circling. Why would Pfizer matter in a recession portfolio? Because in risk-off environments, investors rotate into cash flow, dividends, necessities, and businesses that can function even when the economy slows. Medicine doesn't stop selling because the Nasdaq is scared, so Pfizer calls read like, I want asymmetric upside if the market rotates into defensives and if this beaten-down giant surprises the crowd. Again, calls are leverage. That suggests Burry isn't just trying to hide. He's trying to position for a rotation that could happen quickly when the mood changes. And that rotation is the signature of a market that goes from euphoria to sobriety. Now, at this point, you might think, okay, so that's the portfolio. But there's one more holding. It's not one of the 5. It's not a headline stock, but it's the clue that reveals how Burry thinks about risk at a deeper level. Part 3. The weird holding. The capital structure. Clue Bruker. Not the common stock. Preferred shares. And this matters because it shows you something most retail investors never learn. A company is not one security. A company is a stack. You've got debt, preferred, common, options, different layers, different risk, different payout structure. And in uncertain markets, the best opportunity is sometimes not buy the stock. It's buy the layer that the crowd is mispricing. Preferred shares can behave differently, sometimes more yield-like, sometimes more defensive, sometimes with different sensitivity to equity volatility. So Bruker Preferred in this recession portfolio tells you, Burry is not just picking tickers, he's picking structures. And that's a big deal. Because in a recession, volatility is a tax. If you can get paid while you wait, or if you can sit in a different part of the capital stack, you can survive longer. And survival is the only requirement for winning the next cycle. Now, let's zoom out, because the list itself isn't the lesson. The pattern is. The Recession Blueprint. What this portfolio is really saying, when you put all of this together, Burry's 2026 recession portfolio reads like a 3-part message. Message number 1, the most expensive story in the market is fragile. AI can keep rising until it doesn't. Message number 2, in a downturn, the market will stop paying for dreams and start paying for proof. That's why you see healthcare, value, cash flow, and mispricing targets. Message number 3, the biggest opportunities come from dislocation, not from predicting the headline. This is why the portfolio looks weird, because it's not built for applause. It's built for stress. And now I want to give you the practical takeaway so you can watch this like a smart investor, not a fan club. How to use this without getting wrecked. Here are 3 rules. Rule number 1, don't copy, translate. A 13F is delayed. Options can be hedges. And the biggest numbers can be notional, not risk. So instead of copying the ticker, translate the idea. What environment does this make sense in? Rule number 2, watch the barbell. If you're worried about a recession, you don't need to go 100% bearish. You need to avoid being 100% fragile. Recession portfolios are about survivability, liquidity, diversification, and avoiding forced selling. Rule number 3, keep dry powder. Every crash creates two types of investors, the ones forced to sell and the ones finally able to buy. The difference isn't genius, it's liquidity. If you've got cash reserves, low debt, and patience, crashes become clearance sales. If you don't, crashes become life events. And that's the part of Burry's philosophy that people love to quote, but rarely live. Margin of safety isn't a slogan, it's survival. Final recap. So here's what we learned. Burry's latest disclosed snapshot is basically 8 lines. 2 big downside bets against the AI trade's most symbolic names. 5 bullish exposures built around mispricing, essential systems, and rotation. And 1 preferred position that reveals he thinks in capital structure, not just tickers. That is not the portfolio of someone expecting calm markets. That is the portfolio of someone expecting a mood swing. A shift where the market stops paying for hype and starts paying for reality. So here's the real question. If Burry is right, and the AI trade is the bubble inside the bubble, what happens to the rest of the market when confidence cracks? That's the next video. Click the video on screen because I'm going to break down the 5 warning signals that show up right before recessions become official, and why, by the time the headlines admit it, the money has already moved.